Thanks for coming back and joining us. Really appreciate it. I've got a special guest with me today. But in the meantime, if you can, please like and subscribe, share and comment on the videos. I look at all the comments. I really like all the comments. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear, or what you don't want to hear any more of. So I'm joined by a very special guest, May Longo, who is a missionary for St. Paul's Outreach at Rutgers University. She decided to come and join me today, and we're going to talk about mission work and what it's like on college campus. So, May, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
You're very welcome. Tell me about you. Tell us about you.
Okay, it's a hard prompt. All right, my name is May, as Rob said. I'm from Minneapolis, where I grew up. I think it's the greatest city in the world.
Why is it the greatest city in the world?
Oh my goodness, the community is absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, but it's freezing there all the time.
No, listen. There are studies that show that the people of Minneapolis are the happiest people in the United States, and I think it's because neighborliness and hope are fostered there, and I think the cold is so good for us, so good for our internal bodies.
I think they're happy because they never have to deal with anybody because they never leave their house because they're so cold.
No, they're the greatest people in the world. They're so lovely.
All right, you hear that, Minneapolis people?
Listen, the most joyful day of the entire year is the first sunny day of spring.
Okay.
That's like a little bit, like even 45 degrees. Everybody and their mother is outside, and it's, hi, how are you? If you sneeze on the street, someone says, bless you.
Right, yeah. As opposed to New Jersey where, like, nobody cares.
The neighborliness is exceptional.
Okay. I'll give you that one. So anyway, you grew up in Minneapolis.
Yes. Attended the University of Minnesota.
Okay.
Where I studied journalism and Spanish and fashion studies.
Was that all triple major or major and minors?
2 majors and a minor.
Okay.
Yep. I wanted to be, here's what my dream was. I wanted to be a Major League Baseball reporter.
Okay.
Which is why I got the Spanish, because 2/3 of MLB is Hispanic.
Okay.
Who is also well-dressed with a killer Instagram, and that's where the fashion studies comes in. Yeah.
Which
like
makes perfect sense
punch.
that you're a missionary at St. Paul's Outreach right now.
Oh, yep,
Perfect.
right.
I see the transition.
I need not explain how that happened.
Okay, that's fine.
Pretty obvious.
That's how God works.
No, so funny. So not what I thought I was going to be doing.
And what made you be a missionary?
So I will say, last year, my senior year of college, mission wasn't even on my radar.
Okay.
I was in a bout of spiritual desolation. I had just come back from studying abroad, and I hadn't been connecting with the liturgies, and I just kind of wanted to give up. But I had committed to St. Paul's Outreach Household Program.
Okay. For your senior year, that was?
My senior year,
okay.
Yes. Which really is a school of love. Like that, you learn to live with each other, and you're united by Christ, and you live with your religion at the center of your life. And that is something that God made sure I said yes to before my senior year.
And that was what, your like summer of your senior, before your senior year, into the afterwards? Okay.
So naturally, mission wasn't on my radar. Really just having trouble praying, no desire to pray. It was hard.
I laugh because that's just life.
I know.
Happens.
And I'm living with these 7 girls who are like on fire for the Lord. And so I'm like, this is so annoying. Like, you guys are so annoying.
Could you guys just stop?
Right? I'm like priorities people. Like, we got careers to get to.
Right.
I was her, and I was like, hustle culture, let's go. I gotta get a job. And then over winter break, my senior year, I felt called to serve in some capacity, but obviously didn't think it was a religious capacity.
Okay.
So I applied to serve with the Peace Corps.
Okay.
Went through that whole application process, and I told myself, if I get an invitation to serve with Peace Corps, I'm going to say yes. And that was that. And then come spring semester, I start praying over and over again, like, Lord, I feel your absence. Let me feel your presence. And that became a sort of mantra. And that really, God really used that prayer as a way to my heart to soften it and to get at it. And I knew by mid-February I had to at least discern mission for the building of God's kingdom.
Okay.
I was knee deep in Jesus' presence. Like, it was all over, and I was constantly praying and constantly thinking about him and feeling so led by his love, and knew that I wanted to live a life in love and service of Jesus. So I applied to SPO, still unsure what to do.
Okay.
The day of my SPO interview, I got an invitation to serve with the Peace Corps.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm freaking out, like stress crying and calling my parents, and they're like, we can't make this decision for you, my dear. And I knew that, and I knew that God had me, and even the next day, it was like Peace Corps needed an answer in 3 days, and which is not helpful because SPO was like, we'll get back to you in 1 to 2 weeks.
Right.
Ooh.
Right.
So there's a lot of tension there. But there were so many reminders that next day that God was in this decision and that he would bless wherever I was called to. And then I ended up getting the SPO offer later that day, the next day.
So wait, you got it within the 3 days?
Like the next day after my interview. I know. And as soon as I got that offer, I was overcome with joy and peace, and I kind of took that as my answer. I said no to Peace Corps, said yes to SPO, and I still can't even believe it.
Wow.
Like all year, I didn't even tell any of my roommates because I was like, they're going to be like, what the heck? Like this girl, she made fun of missionaries all year, and now she's going to be one? Which I understand.
That's kind of how God works, though.
Right?
Like,
it had to happen that way.
Yeah,
had, otherwise I would not have said yes.
Yeah.
It had to happen that way. It had to be like New Jersey or Africa, like you pick.
And there's in some ways, New Jersey could be rougher than Africa. So
God's children are everywhere.
That's right.
Yeah.
So a year and a half ago or year and 3/4, you wouldn't have ever thought that this would have been where you were.
Oh my gosh. First semester senior year, absolutely not.
And how has this been now, being here? What do you think of this whole thing so far?
I think it's such a gift.
Okay.
Such a gift. I'm realizing how much love I have to give simply by receiving. And I never thought that I could move away from. I love my family so dearly. I'm one of 6. We're very, very close with each other. And I didn't really think that I would ever be called to move away from Minneapolis, from them, from familiarity, from the communities I'm a part of, until I did. And now I'm realizing that I can.
Yeah.
Like it's God's grace is enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's another way that God just shows you all these things in your head. You're saying, I can't do.
Yeah.
And these barriers get broken down.
And he's like, that's fine. I can do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just trust
me.
me.
Like, you're right. You can. But here I am.
Yeah. Just trust me. It dawned on me in the fall. I was listening to the reading, and we get it a lot, is the reading where, Mary, Gabriel comes to Mary.
Yeah.
And she says yes. She didn't know what she was walking into.
Nope, that was her life completely changing.
It dawned on me at that point in the fall. I went, wait a minute. She said yes. Did she have any clue? Not really. She just said yes. And I said, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to say yes when we're called, regardless of where that goes. And then later we're not supposed to say, well, I shouldn't have said yes when things get hard. No, you should have said yes.
Yeah.
And
oh my gosh, yes. Yeah. There are so many times this year where I've experienced my own spiritual poverty, and it's like in those moments God shows up in power.
Yep.
And that's what I need to remember over and over again.
Yep. 100%. Tell me what it's like being a missionary. Now that you're here now, you moved to Rutgers, which is, I'm sure it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nothing like Minneapolis, or unless maybe it is, I don't know. But it's nothing like Minneapolis. What does your day look like? What does it look like being a missionary?
Yeah. That's something that I was asked a ton when I went home for.
I'm sure, because people are like, what the heck are you doing?
Yes, my grandma was like, so what do you even do? And I was like, honestly, like it varies so much. Varies so much, but every time people ask me like how I am, I say I'm legit the busiest I've ever been in my entire life, which is so good. Like that is how I thrive. I definitely thrive more when I'm busy than when I'm bored, which I think is very common.
I absolutely. You
Boredom,
think you're going to do well
the devil's playground.
When it gets quiet, but you don't. You do better when things are moving.
Yes, exactly. And so with that, the year has flown by.
Right, we're already to April. Yeah.
No, it's insane. It's scary. But, I mean, we really run the campus ministry at Rutgers.
Okay.
Everything that goes on at the Catholic Center, everything surrounding the liturgies, women's nights, men's nights, large community socials, everything in between, like we do. And then we also just care for the students in front of us. And we pray every day that God breaks our hearts for the students at Rutgers.
Right.
And we pray and we go out and just show people love.
Okay. And in saying that, show people love.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like a typical day. Like what would that look like for showing people love?
Yeah. Okay. So like tomorrow we're figuring out who's going to be on lead team for next year.
Okay.
Who are the students who we're going to uplift to kind of run the large events and like be leaders in our community. We go out and we table tomorrow. We're going to play volleyball.
What does it mean, table? We'll say table. Explain table.
Yeah. looks different every time. Usually we ask a silly question on the Livingston campus at Rutgers. We one time asked, this is my favorite tabling question. We said, who's more athletic, Taylor Swift or Travis Kelce?
Wow.
And I think like 200 people answered. And it was so controversial, which is remarkable because one of them is a pop star and the other is a professional athlete.
Right.
But it was controversial, and I thought that was fabulous.
Because it gets people
it's
talking.
lighthearted. It gets people talking and opens the door for more conversation because as missionaries, we've encountered a love that we believe is for everybody.
Right.
And if we can like simply show them love by looking them in the eye, by making sure that we see them and we want to know them and we don't want anything from them. We're missionaries, not mercenaries.
Right.
Like we simply just like, what is your name? And people are taken back by that.
Well, and I'm sure what they could experience at first is almost like the used car salesman kind of thing.
Yeah, like,
you want
okay,
my name?
weirdo.
What are you getting out of this?
No.
And that's, I think, because I remember, and you know, I was a part of the Rutgers campus ministry back in the 80s. That's where I met my wife. It was different then. It was the Brotherhood of Hope. It was smaller, and it was also ecumenical, although it had a Catholic basis. But the thing that I will say changed my life, Cradle Catholic, you know, was Brother Ken.
Yeah.
Sitting and having pizza and drinking Coke and really just listening and wanting to get to know me, not selling anything. And that's kind of what you just said, right? Just getting with people and showing an interest.
Yeah.
Where do you hit skepticism, do you think, with these folks? Where they're like, no, I don't want to talk to you. You know, something's up. You're going to make me do something.
Yeah. Or like, oh, you don't want to talk to me. And it's like, no. Like, genuinely, I don't care who you are or what you've done. Like, I do want to talk to you.
Right.
And God doesn't care what you've done either. Like, He loves you no matter what. And He wants to give you peace through that. And there is a little misunderstanding there. And especially when we're tabling on campus, it's a split-second interaction.
Right.
And so but it has led to so many students discovering a community for them where they'll have a place and a sense of belonging. And yeah, I think we really pledged to authenticity in that way of like.
Right. And I think what's important is what you just said. You don't care in some ways. You obviously would like them to find Jesus, right?
Totally.
But you're going to love them regardless.
Absolutely.
And if you're trying to give them a place to come, to feel comfortable, to also meet like-minded people.
Or just like letting students know that there is a place. So many students come up and they're like, oh my gosh, where's the church? I'm Catholic. Okay. And it's like, wow. Like, I'm so glad we were here to give you basic practical information.
Right, even just the practicals. I haven't been to church and I don't know where I'm supposed to go.
Yes.
How do I do this? Yeah.
And some people don't even think that like, oh, maybe I should like seek Mass on Sundays like I did all throughout high school with my family until it's presented in front of them.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I should do that.
Right.
And it kind of just sparks something.
Yeah.
It's little, but it's impactful. We're out there for an hour and a half.
And you're fine. I mean, I'm sure some of your conversations don't get much past the whatever question you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's Taylor or Travis or whatever it is. But have you ever had where people have come back? Where like do you have a conversation and either the next week you see them or maybe later that day because there was something that that kind of clicked with them? So
many times. There are so many regulars who walk by and they know us and they say hi. There are these 3 girls. I love them. They live in the building right across from where we table, and they have my picture on their wall.
No!
Isn't that cute? It's so cute.
But you guys typically do it on Livingston, right?
Yep.
Okay, for those who don't know Rutgers, I have to give a comment. Rutgers is 5 campuses, right?
Yep.
It's 5 separate campuses in the New Brunswick area of New Jersey. So you could literally be on one camp and never see somebody else on one of the other campuses because it's this sprawling thing. So the fact, but it's fun that you get to see them. Do you ever table on other campuses or
No, just Livy this year.
Do you do other things on other campuses to reach out? Yeah. So there's other activities, and then like you said, some of the other activities are it's not Spirit Nights anymore. It's Night Fire. And what is Night Fire?
Night Fires are large community gatherings.
Okay.
So we usually have a speaker, an activity, and then just a lot of mingling. Sometimes we'll do something afterwards. But that's one of those things that's like everyone's welcome.
Okay.
Really low bearing. Easy peasy, everyone's there.
Right, and it's just it's like kind of it's the big community gathering.
Yep.
And then of course, you know, if people are involved, they want to get involved in things like men's and women's groups.
Yep.
How many men's and women's groups are there now about? Do you know?
So every Thursday night we meet as a women's group, and then small groups.
Small groups. That's what I mean.
Yeah. There's like 15 for the women, which is crazy.
Wow.
And it's so good. It's so good. Just women having a place to intentionally share about their life and talk about their faith, which is so countercultural, and not many people have groups or spaces like that.
Think about it from a guy's perspective. At least
Oh my
women,
gosh, I think about it all the time.
Right, can talk about their feelings and things like that. Us guys are like, what are we how are we supposed to do
I know.
this?
You see the big game last night?
Yeah.
Well,
because we could do that. And it's funny because I've been a part of a men's group for like the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And we do that. We talk about Marvel movies and we talk about cars and
same with women.
It's not gonna if it stops there, why are we getting together?
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So and you see that benefit where then it's a place of trust. I mean, it's funny because on college campuses everybody's talking about safe spaces, things like that. These are in fact safe spaces.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. And I'm never there to give advice, but I'm there to uplift people and help people learn more about themselves, because that's really what small groups do is the more you talk about what you're experiencing in your life, the more you come to realize these things. And these women have shared experiences, right? They're in college at the same time, sort of seeking the same sort of thing, whether they know it or not.
Right. And that's, I think, part of it too is, have you heard the phrase, I'm sure you have you heard the phrase, oh, I'm not the only one that thinks like this?
Yes.
I'm not the only one that believes this? Right? And I think even that, just for people to be in a room where they go, I thought I was the only one that thought this.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one that struggled with this.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only one that...
And how freeing is that? So freeing.
Yeah. I mean, and I remember because that first time I was exposed to men's groups, or I call it men's and women's groups, you call it small group, a little bit different, right? Share group, whatever, yeah. But okay, so we'll call it share group for common. And I remember doing that. I remember sitting there going, you mean I'm not the only one?
Yeah.
Right? And cradle Catholic, but I'm not the only one that struggles in this area of sin, or I'm not the only one that struggles to pray, or I'm not the only one that... And when you all of a sudden you sit there and go, okay, we're different people. We're not the same people, but we have these common things. And all of a sudden you go, wow, like that's... I would have never thought that. Because I do think that's part of Satan's ploy, by the way. Is to tell you that you're all by yourself and nobody cares.
Yeah,
and nobody else cares.
Yeah.
And what do you think is the most important thing that you do as a missionary?
Oh gosh, great question. I think generally it's just like showing up and showing these women love and using my witness every day in every conversation that I have, just to sort of open the minds and the hearts of these women who are seeking something, and telling them that, like, you might not see it yet, but you are so loved. Yeah.
Do you think... I think things were different 30 years ago when I was in college.
I would imagine.
I mean, still same problem, sin is sin, problems are problems, all that kind of stuff. But it seems to me, what you just said, I think is a great phrase, and I think it's true. I think when I was in college, people definitely had more of a sense that they were loved. Mm-hmm. I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if they never really expressed it, I think part of that was families were together more. Yeah. Obviously, I just put my phone down, but the stupid phones weren't a part of things where there was levels of isolation and things like that. But do you think, that's what I was asking, do you think that's really the biggest thing you bring is to share, like, not only just Jesus' love, but your own love, and show women and that they're loved?
Yeah, I think so. It's just like I graduated last May. I've been through this. I showed up a freshman not knowing at all that I would come to know and love Jesus in the way that I do. Okay. And I went to Catholic school my whole life. I don't even think I was a cradle Catholic. My family stressed so ardently the importance of our faith. Right. And I still like went crazy, went nuts, especially in high school. Got to college. Honestly, I was probably a little burnt out by the time I got to college. Burnt out from not living a Christian. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Which is funny because you're not the only person I've heard do that. Yeah. You go seek these different things, and after a while, it's tiring. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's exhausting being a Catholic. Feel good. No, it's exhausting being a Catholic. It's actually harder to live a life, my gosh, right? Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Got to college, like, rushed my sorority and was like the queen of the sorority girls. That doesn't surprise me. And then, thank you, I'll take it. But encountered this community, and then little by little kept saying yes to Jesus over and over again. And I, like, really wrestled with this tension of living one foot in and one foot out for like a year and a half until I finally kind of like jump shipped. But by that, I mean, began living a well-integrated life where I actually, like, I didn't lose who I was in any way. If anything, I became more of who I was created to be.
Yep.
And that was so freeing. And I was realizing how many of the things in my life that I did day to day or was so used to, I came to realize that there was something past the way, something more that life had to offer than what I was chasing.
Right.
And came to know the community. And as soon as I started living this well-integrated life, I realized that my capacity to receive God's love and to live every day wholeheartedly and to open my heart to more of His grace, that was what was going to fulfill me. And I kind of realized that without the community, without the missionaries who had reached out to me and kept badgering me to come to these things, I don't know if I would have encountered this
badgering
love.
in a right way, inviting.
Absolutely, I can say badgering
because you can do it.
I can do it.
Yeah, you're doing it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what and you've mentioned it, so I think it's important to bring up. Obviously, you didn't find Jesus' love in a closet or by yourself. It was finding Jesus, but at the same time being tied into a community.
Yeah.
Especially, because I've mentioned the cell phones. People are so isolated right now, and I think there's so much influence. I think there could be some good influence on it. I think there's more negative influence, comparison. I'm not this kind of person. Look at what they're doing and I'm not. Look at the money they have and I don't.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I'll say this. I'll even pose this. I don't know that you would have found Jesus' love as well if it wasn't for the community you were a part of.
No, because I had really good people in my life witnessing to me how they're living in the light and really challenging me in really healthy ways to do better.
Yeah.
And to be a better person.
Right.
And to actually form a relationship with God. And I mean, you said the isolation is so crazy, and I think it is largely in part to technology.
I think so.
You have to blame it on technology in a
part.
big way.
Yeah, in part.
Yeah.
I also think it's because families are not where they should be either.
No.
Because I think families are definitely more broken than they've ever been. I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember anybody who was divorced. This was the 70s.
Right.
Now, I mean, we all know people who are divorced or families are messed up or whatever for a lot of different reasons. That's not a judgment. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And I think kids growing up in that are in a spot where, for you to show actual interest in somebody, they're very taken aback by that. Like, why would you even show? Nobody's ever shown real interest in me without wanting something.
Yeah. Well, and that's also American culture, so individualistic.
Oh, 100%.
We're very much so taught to be self-reliant, and that is glorified of it's seen as competence.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case.
No.
I think the most competent people are the people who know how much they need other people, especially for sanctification.
Right. Well, even the reading today is the act was everybody, it was for the purpose of the mission.
Yeah.
They're all selling everything and they're putting everything in common. And that's exactly what it dawned on me. Right. But the reason there is they weren't doing it for themselves.
Right.
They were doing it for the mission, is that they were then being able to live in such a way where they had a community.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting because when you think about it too, the first thing that got formed after Jesus ascended was the church. Mm-hmm. Right? We needed each other to be there. And I mean, that's the entire Acts of the Apostles.
Yeah.
Is this community. And I think, we can sometimes forget that. We think, well, I'll just be a good person. I'll just be in my room. I'll read my Bible.
Right.
I'll do what I can, which is great because there have been people, a good friend of mine, he has a son-in-law because the son-in-law who was an atheist saw a video about Mary on YouTube and got converted.
Wow.
So that happens.
Yeah. God uses it all.
It happens. But I think more often is exactly what you're doing is making people feel loved, welcoming them into this community. And I'm sure it's hard work. I'm sure there's days you are exhausted, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So burnt out. And there was one day a couple weeks ago where I was so frustrated. You wake up cranky because you're so sleep deprived. Okay, happens to me.
I know. We all do it. There's days I just wake up and I'm angry and I don't know why.
Yes,
and I'm like, all right,
and then I'm I probably need to have a cup of coffee and say a few prayers.
Right.
It was one of those days, and I was so frustrated because I was like, I have to wake up at 5:30 for morning prayer, and I didn't get home last night from whatever event we had until 11, and it's like, I can't get 8 hours. And when someone's like, are you getting 8 hours of sleep? I think they're so ignorant because it's like, I can't! But it all goes back to like, okay, you can't, but God can, and His grace is enough.
Yep.
I find myself every single day thinking to myself, I can't do it. Like, no, I nearly could.
And the thing is, you can't.
God
you can't
equips
do it.
whom He calls.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
and it's funny. I used to play the game of like, I'll get in bed and I'll look at the clock and I'll go, okay, I know what time I'm getting up. And if I go to sleep really
Yeah.
quick, I don't do that anymore because there's been times I've had 3 hours worth of sleep and I've done just fine. Because
Absolutely.
it's whatever circumstance is going on, whatever situation. Because I think it's really easy for all of us.
Yeah.
Even now I've been walking this walk a little longer than you.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes, we had this discussion with a couple of guys around my table a couple of weeks ago. I think as we get older, we think we should have the platinum like Christian card.
Yeah.
Like that we get privileges.
Yeah.
And that like we should, and then the funny thing about that is we're finding the people that are walking the walk are finding it's the opposite. We're realizing how much more we need to do, much further we need to go,
Yeah.
right? But it starts with like just being angry, like
Right?
I'm not getting enough sleep,
Yeah.
and like
no one gets me. No one understands this.
another kid needs my help right now. I just got the chance to sit down,
Yeah,
and
like
take
I
a
get
break.
a text and I'm like, why are they texting me?
Yeah,
Don't they know I'm tired?
But the thing is, and because I being a parent of 4,
Yeah.
it's the same kind of thing. You get the little kid, and and all of a sudden the kid needs you, and you got to go. You know what? I'm here with the and
Yeah.
now they're good adults, and you realize that by responding to that text or you getting up and making that phone
Yeah.
call, you could literally be affecting somebody's life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've seen that already, where there's some of the girls you've talked to are in the spot you were in. I don't want to
Yes.
do this. I'm not doing this.
Yeah. And I
they-
think to myself, like, okay, as a missionary, we need to meet, like, these students where they're at and know that, like, Jesus loves you right there.
Yeah.
Like, right there.
Yep.
But sometimes you're like, oh, meet me where I'm at. And it's like, it doesn't work that way.
No.
And, like, people have shown me so much love and so much patience.
We forget how much patience we've gotten.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking about them, and I think about things that I've told them, and it's like, that must have been so frustrating for them to hear.
I know, but
That's so good.
we
It's so
forget
good to
how much
remember.
mercy we've had, right? I forget that.
Yes, we never deserve mercy.
No.
It's the greatest sign of love that God
We
gives
forget
us.
that we get it, and so we're mercy for other people.
Yeah.
We're out there, we're doing things, and I think what I find is funny, I don't know if you've experienced this, the days I'm at my worst,
Yeah.
it sometimes feels like God calls me on to do some things. Like, Lord, where were you yesterday with this?
Yeah.
Because I was in a better mood.
Yeah.
I was in I got better sleep.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, it doesn't matter. I'm going to kind of slog through this. Lord, you better be here.
Uh-huh.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So many times where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this day. And then, like, boom, that day flew.
Yeah.
It flew, and it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's flew. And not only that, you can look back on those times and go, Lord, I didn't know what this day was going to look like. And I thought it was going to be a crap day. And you have all these interactions and
Yeah.
all these other things.
Yeah.
And you go, Lord, wow, that was amazing. Or there might be days too that was just basically a mediocre
Yeah.
day. Or
Yes,
it
which
was
is
a really
okay.
bad day.
Yeah.
But you don't stop doing it either.
No. And as long as we actually set out, this was actually one of my first daily masses I went to as a student, the homily. I'll never forget it. It was so simple and so short, but really packed a punch. And it was live wholeheartedly every single
Yep.
day. I was like, wow,
Yep.
I can do that.
Yep. Well, it's
We're gonna
funny
do that.
because we're talking about provision.
Yeah.
Also in the fall, I remember hearing 23rd Psalm. I remember I'm older than you.
Yeah,
I've heard
yeah.
the 23rd Psalm, like 10,000 times, right? I
Definitely,
mean, just you hear it.
definitely.
First time I ever actually listened to it.
Yeah.
And it talks about it's God providing for us.
Yeah, yeah.
Spreads the table
He
before
set the
us
table, yes.
in the sight of our foes. And I'm going, wait a minute. I always thought it was this cutesy kids psalm.
Yeah.
And it's not. And you go, it's how God's one way he's telling us yet again, it's not on you, it's
Yeah.
on me, And the other reading that's really had a huge effect on me, and I think, it counts for what you're doing, is the prodigal son, right? And again, prodigal son, I hear it a million different times, right?
Yeah,
Okay, he, the father. Well, realizing, I had a priest friend of mine said, did the homily on it, and he said, we underestimate what God wants to give us.
Yeah.
And that's what this father is showing. The father was watching for the son. The son would have come in and gone, I'll take whatever you'll give me. Like, no, the Father wants to love us so greatly. And that's the hands that you guys are. You as a missionary, you're out there loving these people, maybe when they're not even all that lovable, maybe when they're having a bad day, maybe when you're having a bad day, but it's like, doesn't matter. We don't know the state of the father and the prodigal son, what he was feeling that day.
Right.
He just was waiting for his son, And so I think that's a good kind of model for what you guys are doing. You're willing, it doesn't matter. Show up. Come, and you guys are gonna, you'll feed them pizza or chocolate or something.
Yeah, what I do is simple. Yeah. There's free food.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we know that. Free food, at least. What's been like the most fun thing that has drawn people in? You talked about the conversation.
Yeah.
But was there something that you guys did that all of a sudden people came for the...
Oh, this is great. The men's household threw a milk party.
I'm sorry.
About this? Did you hear about this?
A milk party? No.
A milk party. These two women dressed up as cows, and in the men's house there's a bar. I know. Yeah, the bar in the basement. Man cave.
Oh, of course.
By the way.
Yeah.
There's a wet bar in the basement, and they had all different kinds of milk. They had raw milk, which is not FDA approved, which I find fascinating.
Well, yeah, we're in New Jersey.
Skim milk, which was not a hit.
Don't block us, YouTube. Yeah. We're talking about raw milk. So raw, skim,
whole, chocolate, almond.
Okay. Oh, so they did some of the other, like the nut milks and that kind of stuff?
I do think they had nut milks.
Yeah.
Or
Oat
nut
milk.
Juices, as some of the,
Yeah, because I don't know how you milk an almond. You have the udders.
So funny. Yeah, and people were like, a milk party? And this one student got invited at like a dining hall and had never encountered the community before. He walks downstairs and he's like, oh, this is a whole function. I was so taken back by the milk party. But so many people came because that's so bizarre.
Yeah.
It's just like the craziest, quirkiest thing ever.
But that's great.
And that's like the beauty of the Christian life is it's whatever. It doesn't matter what it is.
No. It doesn't take a lot to entertain us.
No.
And that's honestly not the point, right? So
no.
I know I've done this. I've gone to like even a good Catholic men's breakfast.
Yeah.
And you know me, I'm a social guy, right?
Yeah.
I'll go in, I'll get my cup of coffee, I'll talk to a couple different people. I sit down at the table, nobody talks to me.
Yeah.
There's no interaction. Talk might be great, the program might be great. Nobody's talked to me, I get up and I leave, and what am I thinking? Well, maybe I'll go back, right? Talk about the experience on the other side. When you guys, like you're in a group where and people walk in, what do you guys do? What's your kind of posture for things like that?
Yeah, I mean, if we see a face that we've never seen before, there's eagerness to meet that person and to know about them, and then you start learning about them and you make a connection, and that connection is what draws people back.
Right.
And it's been amazing to see the students in the community on mission. And we've seen
because it's not just you guys.
No, the students are incredible, and they're so quick to be like, oh my gosh, a new person. They'll go up to them if they find out their major has the same major as someone else. They'll be like, oh my gosh, you guys have the same major.
Right.
And it really is networking at a relational level of just
it's sales.
This is how we make friends.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sales, except you're selling Jesus. I've been in sales for a long time. That sales and evangelization done the right way are exactly the same thing.
And people leave fulfilled and hopeful, and seen and uplifted and probably really excited. Yeah. Really excited for what they just encountered and to get more involved.
If they come in and they just meet you, that's great. They've spent the night with May, they meet you. But I would think you're not just spending the night with them.
No.
You're going, hey, have you met?
Absolutely.
Have you met? So by the end of the night, they've talked to 6 more people. Yeah. People know their name, right? And I think that goes a long way
and there's a next thing. There's like, we're also having XYZ, like we're having this thing. Sign up here, you're so welcome to come. Right. And there's no pressure to come, but you are so welcome to come.
Right, you're very welcome. We want you there.
Yes.
If you can't be there, we get it. You're a student or whatever.
I'm not gonna like be butthurt. Like that's we would just like it's very simple.
What is now I know because I remember being a college student. I remember being a post-college student.
Yeah.
And the dumb things that you wind up doing, especially late at night. What have been some of the dumb things that you've done as a mission leader?
Oh gosh, I thought you were gonna ask.
No. Not
I was like,
as a mission leader, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there are things that you do, like, obviously we know that there's the after Easter Vigil party, which went till whatever time.
Yeah.
But it didn't end there for a lot of people,
Yeah.
and I know that. So I'm just wondering, have there been those things where you've realized it's better? Hey, we're going to go and we're going to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and do whatever.
That's so funny.
Have there been anything like that you?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Also, living in my house, it's so funny. I live with 2 students and another missionary, and we're all the same age. We're all 23. And we are just the best of friends, the 4 of us. And it's been so fun to live with such close friends. There was one night, everyone had left after Women's Night. We have Women's Night at our house, and we did hair tinsel, and there was tinsel.
Oh, I remember that. I remember seeing you guys after
definitely.
that. Yeah.
You're everyone's sparkling.
By the way, guys don't do hair tinsel.
No,
they
no,
wouldn't do that.
no.
We just eat meat.
Yeah,
that's what we
boards.
did. Yeah.
Tinsel all over our floor, and we were like, we have to clean up. And we're going into the closet to get cleaning supplies, and we find a rope ladder.
No.
Yeah. So we were like, game over, throw it out the window. And so we all took turns going down the rope ladder and then up the rope ladder at 11 p.m.
Was it one that tied, or was it one with the hooks?
No, the hooks.
Oh, good. Because I was just
Yeah.
saying, hopefully some of
No,
you
the
had to
hooks.
tie knots, because otherwise.
It was so much fun. And so then the next week we had the men's house over for community joint morning prayer, and we texted 2 minutes before they were going to get here and be like, doors are all broken, but you'll know it when you see it. And we had them.
No.
We had them all climb up the rope ladder at 6:25 a.m. That's so
great.
good.
Well, and you're in a college town, so that doesn't freak anybody out.
No,
because they've seen worse than that.
Some people, you know what? Some people actually would walk by, didn't even look up, and that offended me. I was like, "You're not interested in this at all."
Well, I remember for us when I was at Rutgers,
Yeah.
Thursday night was party night, which is also
Yeah.
the night that we had our prayer meetings, right? The things you see as you're walking past frats and all that kind of stuff, there's not a lot that surprises me anymore after the things that you were able to see.
I there's nothing that could scandalize me at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Which equips me also so well to be a missionary.
Right. Well, which is good, because then you can have these conversations. Somebody opens their heart to you, and you're not going, oh, you're going, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's great. That's
Yes,
great. I'm glad
yes.
you're talking. Let's talk. And then you tell a story and you find a way to relate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that makes all the difference, because I think the other thing I've experienced, first off, I think there's a lot of people experiencing shame out there. I think shame today is huge. And even from a secular perspective, there was a woman on YouTube, I think her name was Brene Brown.
Oh, wonderful.
Countered shame with vulnerability. Mm-hmm. And we know that.
Yeah.
Right? So you
absolutely.
feel like you're the only one. Oh my gosh. And then you somebody's vulnerable with you. You're vulnerable back with them. And again, you're not talking about walking into a supermarket and doing that. You're talking about a safe spot where you can be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure you've seen that, where it's like, you being vulnerable, you sharing your story a little bit with somebody breaks down those barriers.
Absolutely, absolutely. And shame is such a stumbling block for so many students who maybe want to get out of whatever they're doing or want to break these habits.
Yeah.
And that can really be the inhibitor in so much joy, and so much hope. And and that's such a shame, but you're so right. The vulnerability of just opening up and even saying out loud and then being met with love,
right,
that changes someone's life.
Well, and that you can be vulnerable, and that somebody's still going to love you.
Yes.
Because I think that's one of the things, just from being in a marriage, having kids, and dealing with people.
Yeah.
I think people are so afraid of being known of who they really are.
Yeah.
That if I was really known, people are going to leave me. I'm going to be lonely.
Yeah.
And I think you guys are absolutely countering that by going, no, please be who you are.
Yeah.
Please share who you are, and we want you to. Because if you're not actually sharing who you are, there's not a lot of growth. There's not a lot God can do. He will.
Right.
But the more open that we are, and you guys are showing that, because you're not just going, hey, we're having these events, we're doing these things. You guys are living your lives. You guys are putting your lives on the line for that. And you have great examples with the other women. And I said this before we started. I said, you guys have you're like the A-team here. at Rutgers.
Thank you.
Of missionaries, because it's what, 3 men, 3 women right now? And then you're also tied in with the Brotherhood.
Yep.
Right? And it's the Brotherhood that basically oversees it, is that?
Yeah, they do campus ministry, and Brother Brennan is our chapter leader, so he leads our team.
And he's an awful fit for being a chapter leader. He's a oh my gosh, he's a difficult person.
Best ever.
But then you're also empowering the students on the next step as well, which I think is great, because it's not just this, hey, we're doing this. It's get everybody involved on the same page.
And imparting them with missionary zeal. Like what I'm doing, it's not 2 gap years. Like this is all of my life for the rest of my life, no matter what capacity or what space I'm on mission in. Like it is like you wake up every day and you witness to the love that you've received.
Right.
And that's what we want to impart on our students. And they have taken that and run with it.